Your discretion is advised.
It's a beautiful, bright morning. The sun is starting to rise, and this is Safari Live. Ready.
Standing by.
Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our sunrise safari. As you can see, there's a beautiful crescent moon that is just starting to dip down towards the sunrise as we move into our new moon phase. It is promises to be a beautiful start to the day. Isn't that color absolutely spectacular? Now, my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Dangerous Dave with his gloves on, and we are going to probably go in search of lions this morning. So we're going to go see if we can find those tracks that we were looking for yesterday. So that's going to be our plan. Now, it is an interactive game drive, and we are doing this live, so we would love to hear from all of you. If you are new viewers, you can send through any questions that you may have on hashtag Safari Live, and for all the viewers that are with us fairly regularly, I'd love to hear from you guys too. It's always nice to get lots of questions and to be able to have lots of things to talk about on a beautiful morning like this. Now, I wonder if we're going to get a little bit of bad weather coming in, because the temperature is very different to yesterday morning. It's a little colder than it was yesterday morning, and there's an old rhyme that says red sky at night, sailors delight, red sky in the morning, sailors take warning. Through and is maybe going to hit us. Like I say, the temperature is probably, I would say, at least 5 or 6 degrees Celsius cooler than what it was this time yesterday morning. Wouldn't you agree, Dave? Yeah, absolutely. There we go. So, I was saying we're going to go look for any signs of these lions. I know James is on my eastern side, so hopefully he'll be able to see if there's any sign of that injured zebra, or if it maybe met its demise last night, which will be quite sad. I know Taylor will be very, very sad if that is the case. So, we'll look around and see. Now, if anybody has been watching the dam cams, maybe you can give us an idea of where the zebra went from the dam cam last night, and we'll be able to figure out if it's still alive and still doing its thing. Now, I'm not the only one out here. There is another gentleman of the bush who is driving around in search of all things wild, and he's got another angle of the beautiful sunrise. So let's go across to James Henry to say good morning.
Good morning, yes indeed. I am, well, not quite driving around just yet. Very kind again of Tristan to refer to me as a gentleman. I think that's very nice of him. My name is James Henry. On camera today we have Batman the Loud, and he has recovered from his tick bite. Haven't you, Batman? Here we are, there are his thumbs. And unfortunately, just 2 feeds this morning on account of the fact that Willem Dorenbraak has gone down with some form of stomach malady. So he's going to take the morning off, which I think is a very good thing indeed. The first thing we're going to do this morning, afternoon for some of you I suppose, maybe in Hawaii perhaps, we're going to drive around quarantine and see if we can't find that injured zebra that Taylor was looking at yesterday. And perhaps, there's quite a lot of other animal activity around here, so it doesn't look to me like there's a great deal of predator activity around here. We thought maybe the hyenas would have had a go at him. I'm not sure if that is going to be the case. Please talk to us during the course of the drive. Hashtag Safari Live, of course, is the best way to do that on tweet. Like that melodious lark. Melodious, not melodious, monotonous. Okay, let's get going. The light is starting to come up. We'll just have one last look at the horizon while I settle myself into my seat and ready myself to start the car, and then we'll go and find some animals with any luck. Good. Okay, here we go. For those of you who were watching the pre-show, my time-lapse was a disaster. Didn't work at all. Megan, you're talking to me, Sweet Pea. Let's head up to to look at these impala over here. Alright, apparently we're going across to Tristan now.
Well, I believe while we look for lions, Mr. James Henry is going to go look for Karula and the cubs. Now, James, I'm glad you're going to go look, because I think I've forgotten what they look like or what a leopard looks like. I don't even think I would be able to see their tracks. So good luck with that. I'm hoping that they do come back. It's been a ridiculously long time that they've been away, so it would be really nice to actually see them again. And what would be equally nice is if these magical lions that decided to walk all over this place yesterday, with tracks everywhere on almost all the roads in the western sector of Djuma, decided to also show themselves. They were also a bit much yesterday. We tracked them and we went on foot to go find them, and tracks went up and down, and there was confusion when they crossed over to Arathusa as to where they were and if they came back to us, and we got told mixed reports as that they came back in different areas. But we went there anyway on bushwalk yesterday afternoon, and alas, we found very little. What we did find was lots of tracks of tires going over our tracks, which didn't make things any easier. So I'm just driving in all the areas that Taylor was driving last night, just in hope that maybe, just maybe, these lionesses could still be around. It's a long shot, but a shot that we shall take just to check and see, and it's always worth having a little look around these western sides. The lion movement at the moment has been so strange and so different to what we used to, that it's quite interesting to watch the behavior and the patterns developing, or I suppose, or lack of patterns. Good morning, European roller. I'm sorry to blind you. There was a European roller that just flew off, but it got a face full of my light, unfortunately, which is not very pleasant. So most of the birds will still be down on their branches. It's a little bit dark for them to be flying around too much, but the light is starting to come up quite nicely over the horizon behind us, so it should be a beautiful sunrise. It's not going to be quite as spectacular as the sunrise we had yesterday. Yesterday was absolutely amazing because we had a bank of cloud on the eastern side, and so as the sun came up, it was just below those clouds, and the whole bank was illuminated, these incredible purples and maroons, and then it went into sort of that orangey yellow phase. It was quite something to watch. And of course we did have two male elephants that were having a little bit of a tussle, which just made it even that much more special. Right, so we're going to carry on, and while we look around for these lions, I believe James has come across one of the victims of those lions from 2 nights ago.
We have, everyone. Here is the zebra that Taylor found yesterday and spent a lot of time with yesterday afternoon. And yeah, I mean, this is the first time I've seen it. You can see it's definitely, obviously, looking at the pain that it must be feeling. And of course, you cannot read pain off an animal's face, can you? So seldom are you able to actually read what they're feeling from the expressions that they wear, because their faces are not very expressive. Yeah, I mean, that's a flap of skin. It's what might be described as a flesh wound. It's a very, very severe one. But what I thought was quite interesting, we watched the zebra move a bit. And I don't think that stomach issue, or certainly the skin flap, is going to be the zebra's problem. I think its biggest problem seems to be a limp on the right back leg. And if it cannot get rid of that, then it is going to fall victim to a predator. But clearly, you know, it's not rotting, it's not making a stink up, and so it hasn't attracted any predators. And what's quite interesting to me, we're sitting here at the fireside chat area. There are a whole lot of little impala off to the left-hand side, and they, you know, you'd imagine almost that animals by this stage of their evolution would know to avoid other animals that are going to attract predators, which clearly the impala are not doing. They're very happily lying down in the vicinity of the zebra, and the zebra is clearly also spending time with the impala for security purposes. There's also a wildebeest around here, just in front of us. I've just noticed him. See him there? Just behind the tree. He's hiding behind the apple leaf tree there. There we are. Now, a lot of you are amazed that he's still alive, and we go into this discussion again of, what should we do? Should we help? Should we not help? Should we put him out of his misery? Not put him out of his misery? Leave him? What should happen here? Because clearly he's done for. Well, that's not so clear, you see, and I think it's going to be fascinating to see whether this zebra does actually survive or not. Because the resilience of the animals out here is quite phenomenal. And Red, you say, what are the chances of it surviving? I don't know. I don't know what the chances are. I could give it a number, but I really don't think it would be very meaningful at all. I don't think we have any idea what the chances are. That's a severe injury, but it's not internal. Yes, there's a lot of skin missing. That skin flap could well hold the animal back. I don't know. I can't see if this was a stallion or a mare. Did you? A young mare. So that's, at least that skin flap is not going to extend over the sheath. And so because it doesn't extend over the penis sheath there, at least there won't be any form of internal injury via that way. So that is just a skin flap. Just a skin flap, I say. And as Taylor said yesterday, it's going to take a long time to rot off because it is very big. And quite a long time to be replaced, of course. So, I think that zebra probably needs 2 weeks free of harassment in order to get through this. If it is harassed again within the next 14 days or so, can you hear the gnu? Hello. Just giving a little territorial call. So if it remains unharassed for the next 14 days or so, I'm guessing here, then I think she'll probably survive. But if not, if the lions were to come back here, I think she'll really struggle to get away. Aaron, you're wondering if it's rare for prey to get away from predators with bad wounds. Yes, well, clearly. I think she's going to struggle to run. It looks to me like her back leg is sore. I'm not sure. Craig reckons maybe it's because of the wound that she's sort of limping along a bit. So, Aaron, yes, it would be rare for her to get away from, from an animal once, were they to try and harass her again. But, it's possible, and I don't know why it is that the lions let her go. The lions let her go, presumably because she managed to exhaust them sufficiently that they couldn't keep on with her. She may well have done some injury to those lionesses. I suspect it was those 2 lionesses, and that's a relatively large prey item for 2 lionesses to have a go at. You see, I'm not sure that is just skin. It looks to me like there's quite a lot of swelling where the skin is attached there. You know what? I think she was actually on the ground. This looks to me like she was on the ground as well. And Bobby, you see, she's limping on that leg. No, if that doesn't heal, she'll die. Bobby, you say, will the skin grow back normally? No, it won't. She will be scarred for life if she survives. It'll be a fairly severe scarring. The skin is already drying out, but you see how she cannot put any weight on the back right leg. So I don't know if that's got to her hip. Maybe she just pulled a muscle. But it looks to me like she was down on the ground and then managed to get up. and kick off the lionesses, who probably by that stage were so exhausted they couldn't carry on. You see, that back leg is a disaster. Shame. And Michael, yeah, I mean, that would be the fear for a human being, wouldn't it? If you had an injury like that as a human being, your greatest fear would be infection. And certainly, I mean, you read these stories of ancient battles before the advent of antibiotics and how even the smallest cut could result in festering wounds and the growth of, or the development of severe infection, which would then result in death. And we look at an animal like this and think, well, surely, I mean, there's no washing going on there. That animal must surely get an infection and drop dead from it. I think it's very rare out here, Michael. These animals are in the conditions to which they evolved. There are no foreign pathogens that could get into that they haven't survived with for hundreds of thousands of years. So I think that infection is the smallest risk she faces right now. I think the greatest risk she faces is that back leg, because without it she cannot run. And if you cannot run out here, then you are going to be in trouble. Very kindly, the biting flies have managed to get up nice and early today, so they've started savaging our legs. Craig, have you been bitten yet? Not yet. I must be attracting the flies. How wonderful. And I think, yes, that's certainly an aspect of perhaps why there's less infection. Molly, you're saying, will the oxpeckers try and keep it clean? Well, they may well keep it clean of maggots. Maggots, of course, are not a bad thing for a festering wound. Maggots will help a festering wound because they will keep it clean and they will rid it of the rotting, infected flesh. So maggots aren't a problem. The ticks wouldn't be great there, though. And so the oxpeckers will keep that clean. But the oxpeckers will also eat the flesh that is loose there. That's why the oxpeckers will go down there. You see that? That's just an issue, that back leg. I'd wonder if it isn't dislocated. But I don't know. I'm constantly brought back to the time we were watching one of those Nkahuma cubs. And I'm sorry about that box in the way, everybody. That's just part of the fireside chat setup. I'm constantly reminded of that time that we saw the Nkahuma pride cub injured after some sort of spat at a kill site. Oh, and there were terrible tales of how he'd broken his hip and had a dislocated pelvis and had a broken lumbar spine and all sorts of things like that. 3 days later, it was absolutely fine. So I don't know what's wrong with that zebra. It doesn't look very good. Maybe it's just sore. Yeah, Michelle, you're wondering about shock and how they tolerate such severe pain without going into shock. I don't know, Michelle. I think that the pain aspect of it is almost secondary. I don't think they perceive pain in the same way that we do. They've almost got to just go through the pain, and because of that, while it's unquestionably must be uncomfortable, the body's response, shock, is the body's response to severe trauma in order, I think. Why do we go into shock? We go into shock because of an overproduction of adrenaline, don't we? And in order to immobilize us. So you get to the point where the body has to stop moving. It is so under such severe stress that continued movement would be detrimental. And I think this animal obviously didn't have, go into that state. That's an interesting one. I think I don't know enough about shock to know why or how severe the pain would have to be for it to go into shock. Of course, human beings just pass out eventually. I've certainly had that experience once or twice with broken limbs where the pain is so severe. I'm just going to reverse out the way because that box is starting to offend me deeply. But I've had that experience once or twice where you've got a broken limb and I've just passed out completely. You wake up a bit later when perhaps the adrenaline rush has subsided. Yeah, of course they do, Mike, probably much like you do. You say, do people on safari ever feel like intervening? Yeah, certainly. I feel like intervening now. I'm not going to. I'm not going to advise anyone to. In fact, I would advise anyone against intervening here. Normally, when humans intervene, we just make the problem worse. In fact, I would say almost always. And so, yes, what we could do, I suppose, is call a vet in. You'd dart the zebra, it would go down, you'd cut that flap off, you'd give it a bit of sort of antibacterial rub over the wound, and then hope that the leg set itself and it was okay. But we're not going to do that because the shock of putting the animal down onto the ground, the increased shock in addition to the trauma that it's experienced with the lions, may well drive it over the edge and may kill it anyway. So its best chance of survival is to be left alone by us. But certainly, Mike, the sight of an animal in clear distress like this one is horrible, and the temptation is always to try and help, but we cannot do that. Oof. It's a cruel world out here, and I mean that's not the only wound. That we're looking at that flap of skin, but look at the wound behind the left shoulder there. I mean that's a big skin flap as well. That must be that's deep. That's very deep. I mean, these lions must have been almost eating the zebra by the time it managed to get up, and they must have been absolutely finished, exhausted, that they let it go in this state. Shows you how powerful a zebra is, A, and B, how difficult it must be for two lionesses to take one down, and I think it's one of the reasons that we seldom see zebra kills here. I suspect those lions went off and ate an impala sometime during the course of the night. And sad, well, you've asked a sad question, and you say, will the other members of the herd that it used to belong to? Oh, Tad, not sad, Thad. You say, well, the other members of the herd try and stay away from this one. Well, that's why I was talking about the impala earlier on, seemingly perfectly happy to be around the wounded zebra. That I don't think it's a question of them trying to stay away from it because it's wounded. I think it's a question of them needing to move on, go and have a drink, go and graze and that sort of thing. They don't, like most of the animals out here, look after their sick and infirm. So when you get injured, I'm afraid you're on your own out here, unless you're a wild dog or a dwarf mongoose. I have seen some footage from National Geographic that was interpreted by the filmmakers as lions helping an older and crippled female, and certainly, yes, it did look like that. And we normally talk about how lions will forsake each other at the drop of a hat. You know, an injured lion in the pride is normally left completely to its own devices. So there's some evidence that lions will look after their sick, aged and infirm, but very, very few animals will do it. And in fact, I was just reading this morning that the earliest evidence of it in humanity comes from I think it was, what was it? It was Homo erectus, which was one of the sort of first hominid species out here, or the first human species. And before that, there's very little evidence, actually, although there's very little evidence at all of anything, but there's very little evidence that even proto-humans look after each other. So it's not a common thing in the wild. But it does happen, of course. Like I say, the wild dog's an obvious example, wolves an obvious example, chimpanzees, definitely they look after their aged and infirm. This is quite interesting. We've got tracks of wild dogs going east on the southern boundary. Melissa, you're wondering about whether or not that skin, the missing skin there, would compromise a pregnancy. Well, that's interesting. No, I don't think so. I think that the integrity of the skin will be returned. It won't look the same, but I think the skin will reform and rethicken, and I don't believe that a pregnancy would be compromised were she to fall pregnant and have to carry a foal to term. So I don't think so, no. I mean, I don't know for sure. But I just don't think she's going to get that far, I'm afraid. My bet is that that injured leg is eventually going to result in her being flattened by something out here. I may be quite wrong. I'd be so excited if I was wrong. I wonder, Dave, I mean, Craig, do you think, is that just blood and gore from the stomach, or do you think that that is an injury? You know what? That ankle is swollen, and there's a severe gash there. There's the problem. I wonder if that fetlock joint isn't broken. That's horrid. Now, the fetlock joint there is the equivalent, basically, of the middle of your foot. Yeah, there's the issue. You can see it's very swollen indeed. And it's... yeah, I don't know. You know, I have torn ligaments in my ankle. Unspeakably painful. Foul language emitted from my mouth when it happened. But, you know, within 2 days' time, 2 or 3 days, I was walking on it again. I had it scanned by a medical professional who says there's nothing you can do. You just got to ride it through. And that could easily be 2 ligaments that have detached, or a ligament that's detached. It's swollen, of course, to immobilize the joint, which is the body's just why the body does swell. And it's quite possible that in a day or 2, the swelling will go down, the pain will dissipate, and she'll be able to walk on it. Craig, just go back to that plant, straight above her head. Oh, no, it's not there. There's a wild dacha plant, or Leonotus leonurus, and I thought there was a sunbird sitting on it, but there isn't. Never mind. Oh, really fascinating to watch an animal try and get through a time like this. No, Aaron, I don't. You say, do I think the same lions will try and find this injured zebra? No, I think they would have done that last night. And I suspect quite strongly that they ate something else that night. I suspect they probably ate an impala or something like that. And because of that, because of their devouring of the impala, they forgot about the zebra. Because they've moved on. We found their tracks going on and off all over the place, a long way from here. And I think yesterday evening somebody spotted a lioness on the dam cam. And I'm sure that lioness and the other lioness, Amber Eyes, was probably responsible for this heinous crime. I'm just listening to the radio. It looks like there are wild dogs, but they're running down towards Chitwa, it would seem. All right, we're going to leave that zebra there. I think it's time to press on and see if we can't find a predator, because I haven't seen a predator for some time. And the sun is just coming up. Whoops. And as I say, the sun is rising. Tristan would actually like to show you the sun rising.
Indeed, James, we're driving along and we got a bit mesmerized by this beautiful sun that is starting to come over the horizon. It looks like it's going to be a big orange ball this morning, and then you've got those deep blues coming off the top, and it's just lovely to sit in the early morning and listen to all the sounds. We've got the monotonous larks calling around us, the button quails were calling as well. There was a few magpie shrikes earlier. So it really is quite a beautiful scene, and just like I say, just to sit in the quiet and appreciate the sounds of the bush. It's also a really good time just to keep quiet, because often at this time of the day is when predators are making their last movement. So either you can possibly pick up the sound of lions roaring, you can hear maybe some sort of alarm call or a leopard rasping. So it's good just to sit at this time and sometimes just listen and take in the environment that we have. It is going to be a beautiful day though. I think even though there was quite a cold start, I think we're going to end up with a very, 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 very warm day. Looks like that sun is going to be ferocious today. Now, we don't need lights anymore, Davy. I can get rid of those. I just want to listen to the radio quickly, because it sounds like they have tracks for maybe Karula. That will be quite nice if there is tracks for Karula coming our side. But I think what I'm going to do is leave James to carry on with the southern side, and maybe he'll get lucky with Karula. And I'm going to carry on heading to the west to try and see if there's any sign of these lions, and see if they've not either come back this way or if we can find them somewhere on Arathusa. I would imagine from the dam there, I'm hoping that they can towards Djuma side and along somewhere on Arathusa, but closer towards where Djuma is. So that's maybe what I'm going to go do. I think that's the best plan. Oh, isn't that spectacular, Dave? Let me just straighten you up there, but it's quite something to look over this little open plain, that then down into the valley, and that sun just coming up over the horizon. It's amazing how fast it rises as well. You can actually see it coming up and over. Michael, you're wondering if anyone has checked any of the other dens recently for the hyenas, and if we don't have any luck with leopards or the lions, if we can go across to Ribbon's Den. Well, Michael, I was actually thinking about going to Ribbon's Den anyway, but one of the vehicles from Djuma is going there to go and check, so we'll get an update quite shortly as to whether Ribbon and her cubs are there. I know that yesterday morning they were seen very, very briefly, and then by the afternoon there was nothing there when people checked. So I do think we will try and check around. As for the other dens, no, I did go past where Gwen was on Cheetah cut line a few times, and there's no actual signs of them going in and out. There's no fresh tracks in that area, so I don't think they're utilizing that one anymore. I'm going to take Zoe's as well now, so I'll go past that area, and if I see lots of hyena tracks on the road, then maybe we'll go and quickly have a little look of that one of Zoe's. But at this stage, it doesn't seem like there's tracks sort of leading anywhere else than around that area. Now, I'm a firm opinion that this hyena clan is using somewhere close to Ribbon's Den as a sort of stopover point. Whether or not they've got another den in that same area, I'm not sure. But every time I drive on the southern side, so towards Treehouse Dam and south of that den site, there's just hyena tracks up and down all over the place there, and multiple sized hyena tracks. So it's not just for Ribbon, that's for the matriarchs. I've seen signs of, well, saw Madam there the one day. I've seen other members of the clan also on that road, so it's feasible that there is another den somewhere in that area. Now, it would be really nice if we could find it. In fact, I think the next bushwalk I do, I'm going to actually walk around that part of the world and try and see if I can actually see any signs of a new den or another den that is potentially quite close to where Ribbons is. Because we as yet have not seen any other hyena with Ribbon at that den. It's just been her and the two little ones. doesn't seem like any of the other members of the clan pay any attention to that den at all. So I think they've got to be somewhere else. The amount of tracks that we see every morning doesn't add up to just Ribbon being around. There's tracks all over the place, and sometimes you drive via tele-access, there's tracks for maybe 5 or 6 hyenas walking down there. So it's a place that we need to check and just need to have a look around and see if we can find another one. But it is an absolutely beautiful morning. It feels fresh and clean, and it's almost like a morning after we've had a bit of rain. I don't know, everything smells really good this morning. So I think with the cooler weather, often what happens is the colder air sits lower and it just compresses everything, and it smells really, really good. Right. I think, like I say, let's go Impala Plains and then go up and try and see if there's any sign of these lions coming back. And if nothing, then I will go and pop in at the hyena den, I do promise. What's also quite interesting is there was tracks for wild dogs crossing through Djuma as well. They've gone into Torchwood, but interesting. I wonder which pack it is and where they've come from and how many it is. It just said that there's tracks for the dogs. They came along the southern boundary and then headed into Torchwood, which is good. At least they're around as well. The dogs are always an exciting way to start the day or spend your time on safari. They generally are very, very mobile and they have lots of energy, so they're always really quite fun to be around. It's so nice to see the light actually just hitting some of the trees now. You get this sort of soft glow on the termite mounds, and I think actually let's go and have a look at the massive balanites or torchwood tree. As that sun hits it, it'll look quite spectacular. You can see there's a little bit of light just shading the side of the tree there. It is an incredible specimen, that's for sure. It's one of my favorite torchwoods that I've ever seen. It's got such an interesting shape. Generally, torchwoods have one big trunk that goes up and is generally very, very straight, but this one has got that split off and then it crowns out really nicely, and that interesting gnarled bark that comes down is quite amazing. It is a really, really beautiful tree. Now, one day, I know Byron, who is actually coming today, for those of you who remember Byron or who enjoy Byron's company, he's going to be coming and helping us out for a few days, and he had a leopard in that tree, so I was very, very jealous. He saw Tingana in that tree. I would love to see a leopard just perched, especially in the soft morning light, just hitting its face. Wouldn't that be quite spectacular? On that branch exactly, Dave. I agree. Right. We're going to carry on. It is a beautiful tree, though. Laura, you're wondering whether the animals use the roads a lot, or is it just that, you know, we see them here and because we can't see it on the grass that we notice it more on the roads? No, especially now in summer, Laura, the animals are going to be using the grass, using the roads quite a lot. The long grass is not very comfortable to walk in. It's like us, if we're walking along, rather than walking through the grass where we got sticks poking into us, we've got grass going all over us and the seeds sticking to us, you've got grass going in your eyes, you know, it's really not very comfortable to walk there. Whereas if we are walking on the road, it's comfortable. There's not too much to sort of hit into us. There's no ticks or anything like that. So the animals actually follow the roads more than they do walk in the grass at this time of the year. In winter, a little bit different when the grass dies down, but now in summer, mostly on the road. And talking about being on the road, Dave, do you see that bird that's sitting on the edge of the road in front of us there? There we go. There's by the looks of it, a red-crested Koran. I want it just to turn around, although it looks a little bit big. I'm going to go black-bellied bustard just on size. It looks a little bit big for the Koran. Maybe let's try get a little bit closer and see if I can see its throat. The two of them look very, very similar. Other than that, the black-bellied bustard has a black stripe that goes all the way up the throat and towards the beak, whereas the red-crested Koran, the black finishes on the chest area. problem is with this bird is it camouflages very, very well. So there we go. It's now turned around. Don't fly. Black-bellied bustard. I can actually see that black already on the throat. And look at its camouflage. Even though it had that bright black chest, you can see as soon as it goes into the grass, it disappears completely. And that's because it's got that cryptic coloration on its wings and its back. It's this mottled effect that breaks up the outline much like a leopard's coat. And so once it goes into the grass, it absolutely disappears. And it's got a very interesting sort of technique to avoid predation. We saw the black on the chest area, but what these guys will do is that they'll actually, as they fly or get disturbed, they fly out and the wings are jet black and the tummy is jet black. And so the predator sees all this black flying away from it. It then lands somewhere close by into long grass, and it sits down and it tucks everything in, and it puts that cryptic coloration of the back out, and the predator then starts looking and scanning, and it's looking for that black coloration, and often they just walk right past them because the black is not very visible when the bird has got its back to that predator. So it's really quite an interesting technique that they've got, and one that works really, really well. But now, alas, it has disappeared. It is gone into the grass. And at this stage of the day, or this time of the year, should I say, anything that goes into the grass tends to disappear. James and I were talking about it. He was following Shadow the other day, and Shadow went into the grass and just poof, she was gone. And she did the same thing to me. So it's not easy to see things once they go into this long grass, and that goes back to why the animals are walking on the road. Just much more simple to be on the road than it is to be in long grass and having to deal with all of this that goes on here, as well as all the ticks that are around at the moment. They are everywhere. Last night I walked through exactly this area, and when I got home I was covered in them. It looked as though I was crawling, my skin was crawling. So the animals know that, and they're going to avoid that and rather come onto the road itself. Right, we're going to carry on, see what we can find, see if there's any sign. I have come past now Zoe's where there's that old den off the open area, and there's not a hyena track anywhere here, so I would imagine that that is not active, so we can rule that one out, but we will check some of the others and see if there's any signs of tracks there. Now, at this time of the day, I was hoping that we would have heard some sort of indication of a predator when we were sitting for such a long period, but unfortunately not. Quite surprised actually at how quiet it's been and how little the lions have vocalized. We had those lions that walked right past today, and the reason that was probably so quiet is because the male, being with the females, tends not to make too much noise because he doesn't want to attract the attention of his brothers and have competition for those females. And they also were hunting, as we saw by evidence of the zebra that James saw this morning, and so when they're hunting they're not going to be making huge bellowing sounds so as to attract attention towards themselves, because ultimately any prey animal that's in the area is really going to hear that and know that there's lions around. So when they're hunting like that, they're also going to keep a little bit more quiet. So Roxy, the lions that we're probably going to be looking for, it's difficult to say because yesterday the tracks that we had, it could possibly have been for a Torchwood female. I know that there was a Torchwood female apparently mating with a Birmingham in Torchwood, and those tracks came from that side. But in all likelihood, I think if it's two females and a male, it's going to be two females from the Nkuhuma Pride and a male from the Birmingham Coalition. That's what I feel like. So the other Nkuhumas were up in the north yesterday. The three with the cubs, they were in Buffelshoek. And then I'm not sure where the rest of the Birminghams have been. I don't think anybody had them yesterday, although they might have been up on Simbambili. I didn't actually ask. And so that's what we'll be tracking. We would also look for any signs of the Styx Pride. They have been hanging around a little bit as well, so they would be a welcome scene, or site should I say, to find. But that's pretty much the lion prides at this stage. Unfortunately, the Salalas haven't been up this way for quite a while now. I think that potentially the Salalas, which was the two females with the three cubs, the males, sorry, the males are probably old enough that they've been kicked out now, and so they've probably left, and that means that the two girls will have probably gone back towards the original pride, which is a group of another two females, and maybe joined up there. I know that the older female without the tail was mating, so potentially maybe she's also pregnant and is now looking for den sites. And typically with the chrysalises, they don't den up in this area. They den a little bit further south in the Manyaleti River, close to where the Sand River meets. Hello, little magpie shrikes. You guys are looking very pretty in this morning light. You can see that they're also very puffy this morning. They almost look like they've got a jersey on, and that's because of the cold start to the day. They've puffed out to be able to trap air against the body and keep themselves a little warmer. Well, we're going to carry on and see if we can indeed find these tracks, and while we do that, let's go and see where the elusive Mr. James Henry is and whether or not he's had any success finding any signs of the royal family.
I must say, when you've got to the stage where you're now tracking to see if you can find tracks, we've got to the stage of slight desperation. I am on my way to Buffelshoek Dam. I too am trying to track to see if I can find tracks. I have found no tracks of any predator. I did see some buffalo tracks, but that's about it so far. It is a very lovely morning though, and I must say I think today's temperature is the first genuine autumnal temperature that we've had this year. It's quite chilly. There's just a little nip in the air. My hands are feeling slightly cool, and while I think the day will be gorgeous, certainly we are heading towards the colder part of the year, which for most of you, of course, means that you're heading towards the hotter part of the year, while those in New Zealand and Australia, and those in New Zealand, of course, heading for a beastly cold part of the year. Now, I'm not convinced of the last time I saw any life at Buffelshoek Dam whatsoever, which is why I've tended to avoid the place of late. Well, we'll watch the sun rising. Yeah, that's quite pretty, isn't it? Let's have a listen to the dawn. It's very pretty, Craig. There's not a huge amount of sound, just the hornbill at the moment. That's beautiful. I can still, and I've yet to find it, of course, for you. I have heard I can still hear that hurricane button quail. Ooh, ooh. And Red, you say you love the reflection of the water, or on the water. Yeah, I do too. It's very special. Very beautiful indeed. And there the southern boo-boo. It's a gorgeous sound. Ah, thank you. The click should come before you come to me. I'm trying to get a picture, of course, of all of this gorgeousness, and Craig there was clicking frantically because I didn't realise he'd come back towards us. Sorry about that, everyone. I'm supposed to be more aware than that. It's okay, Craig, I'll try and forgive you. I won't put another tick in your bed so that you get tick bite fever for the second time. Alright, let's carry on from here. Isaiah, you say, what time does the sun come up in this location? Well, at this time of the year, I think it popped up above the horizon at about 6 o'clock. In fact, it popped up just after we went off air, yeah, about 6 o'clock, 6:05 probably. And then in the very heart of the summer, so on the 22nd of December, it'll come up at about 5:15 or so. I think that's about right, yeah, about 5:15. And then in the death of the winter, it will only come up at, it's about an hour and a half's difference, at about 6:45, yeah. We have an hour and a half difference between sunset and sunrise, pretty much, winter to summer, which of course, if you live at higher latitudes, in places like England or North America, Canada, oh look at that hornbill giving his little display there, that hour and a half is very, very small in comparison with the vast variation you get at higher latitudes. I love that when they do this. I find it so amusing. There's another one up there. There we go. Now Tristan has, I think, managed to find some lioness tracks. Probably those two from what I'm now referring to as the Nkuhuma breakaway pride. We probably shouldn't refer to them as that. It's just the two absent Nkuhumas, the two childless Nkuhumas. And they are all over the place at the moment. We don't know what they're doing, why they've left the pride. The rest of the pride is on Buffelshoek. What is that thing eating? I think he's looking for caterpillars. There they go. Oh, close by now. Of course, the balance to be able to sit on a branch like that while it's swaying, quite phenomenal. Let's see if they do another little display. I can hear some elephants way to the south. Oh, that's beautiful. It just is the kind of place, everybody, if you're partial to a cup of coffee in the morning, a cup of coffee at a dam like this as the sun's popping up is just the most wonderful experience. Lovely stuff. Righty. Let's carry on. We're going to go up onto the Buffelshoek cut line and then head a little bit east and then further down to the south along Cheetah cut line. They had some wild dog tracks going sort of towards Torchwood, which is east of us, of course, and maybe they'll come back. May, you want to know if we're going to keep the owl skeleton for the tent. If you're wondering what May is talking about, yesterday we dissected a spotted eagle owl. May, maybe. We're probably going to bury it and see if we can't get the ants to take off the flesh and things like that. We are not, however, taxidermists, and if I can get the bones, that would be great. If I can get them clean without too much trouble, then yes, I will, and I will try and put the skeleton back together. But I got to tell you, the process of cleaning the flesh off bones like that, boiling them, burying them, scrubbing them, it's a little bit more than I'm able to cope with at the moment. So we'll bury it, we'll see if the ants don't clean off the bones, and if they do, well, then yes, we'll try and stick them back together, because it will be very interesting. And the spotted eagle owl, in case somebody thought that we had decided to harvest it in order to dissect it, was a roadkill. So it's always distressing to see, but so valuable if you are having a look at, well, certainly like me, if you're an amateur dissection enthusiast or amateur anatomist, it's quite nice to be able to see and figure out what's going on internally with an animal like that. We've got a large spider web on the lens, Craig. In fact, you've got, well, you've probably got enough silk to make a fairly large kimono. There we are. I think you're okay now. We're nearly at the far northeastern corner I don't often come up here these days, and that's because it's so thick. And, well, I just prefer the slightly more open areas of the down south. And I've yet to find anything at Biffle's Hook I cannot remember the last time I saw anything there. That will change, of course, as the dry season comes in the next few months. No, nothing. Now, Anne, you're wondering about migratory animals. Of course, as we change the season, and the natural assumption is that we would have migrating animals. We don't actually have migrating mammals. Many birds migrate, of course. Probably about, 25% of the birds that we get here will disappear off to the north. None of the mammals will migrate. They will do local migrations, depending on where grazing is. For example, in the dry season we will have a lot of buffalo around here. During the wet season we seldom have buffalo around here, so we haven't seen a buffalo for some weeks now, or we've seen one or two, but very few. So those sort of localized migrations take place, and the buffalo just going up to slightly different vegetation type to the north and to the south. But we don't have large-scale migrations like they do in East Africa or Botswana or in the Sudan of animals, and that's because of humans. Humans have blocked the migration routes that used to take place between here and the Drakensberg Mountains. So often the elephants would spend the summertime here where it's wet and the grass is green, and then as it dried out they'd head off into the mountains and sit in the foothills of the Drakensberg there, where there were there's more permanent water and the vegetation remained greener. Now there are 4.5 or so million people living on the borders of the western borders of the Kruger Park, which means that there's absolutely no way for an elephant to get through to the mountains. There was talk at some stage of trying to reopen a corridor between here and the mountains, but that has not come to fruition. I mean, the political ramifications and political intrigue that would have to take place in order to achieve that would take an extremely skillful politician. So I don't know if that'll ever happen. Then there used to be localized wildebeest migrations as well. The wildebeest would come down into these areas for the winter time on the Sand and Sabi rivers because they're perennial, and then they head up to the northern rivers like the Timbavati, which was a perennial river. It's not anymore, it's now dry most of the year. And they would do that, and then when people started putting artificial water into the area, that the necessity for movement like that decreased, and so there are no there are no big migrations of animals in this area anymore. Now I think Tristan is having a little bit of luck, at least tracking his tracks. Now whether those tracks are tracking him to anywhere near the animal that made the tracks, I don't know, but Tristan will tell you about his tracks now.
So we have had a little bit of luck. It seems like there was a party here on this junction last night. You can see there is the tracks for a male lion that walked here, and there were tracks coming down from the west coming east, and then it seemed like he came into Little Gowrie for a bit and turned around and is going northwards towards Djuma, which is good news. So I'm going to try and see if I can track that. There's also in front of me, you can see there's a big smudged area in front where the wild dogs were lying during the night, so that's all their tracks dotted around there. So they had a good lion last night, but they've gone quite far east from here already. And then there's also tracks even for Tingana on the other side, which was from the other day when we found him 2 days ago. So lots and lots of tracks here. Now it's just to decipher which ones are worth following and which ones are not. Now these lion ones, I mean, they're in soft sand there, so it's difficult to get an exact age, but they look like they are from last night. The ones coming to the east towards this area definitely look like they are from last night, because they're on top of all the cars except for one, which means on a busy road like Gowrie Main is a good sign. So I want to just check these water holes here, or these muddy wallows. I couldn't find any further tracks coming north from those ones. They definitely came onto Djuma, and then it seems like there's a whole bunch of buffalo tracks, and they all go southwards. Doesn't look like they were running, and I can't see any signs of the lions coming up this way, but it's not to say they haven't. They might have just walked through the grass and I just missed it. I didn't look that hard there. I was busy following from the other side and we just kind of came across them, so I'm just slowly checking just to see if they did come this way. But there was lots of buffalo activity here as well as zebras, so I wonder if maybe, just maybe, these lions tried to chase the buffalo and they've chased them back southwards into Little Gowrie. Real deal. You're wondering what the difference is between the male and female lion tracks. Well, it's really just to do with size. The male track is that much larger than what the female's is, and it's quite noticeable when the two are together. When they're not together, it just takes some time and a few years of following tracks to be able to see it straight away. But the males is so much larger than the females. A female, if you had to put your hand out, generally will be about just over the size of your palm. So it will normally come up to about sort of there, whereas a male's can sometimes be as big as my hand, so they can be quite large, and that's how I always use it. When they're young males, a little bit tougher. It's not quite as easy to be able to see, but they tend to have much thicker toes, the males. They kind of leave this big thick toe impression, and then they've got these sort of lobes that really jut out on the sides of the track. So that's how I always tell for young males, but it is quite tough. Young males can be really tough. It looks very similar to what a female's would look like. But I don't see any further tracks coming this way. I wonder if that lion didn't just turn and picked up the scent of the buffalo and went backwards back into Little Gowrie, because there's no further sign other than at that junction coming onto our side, and then it seems like they turn and go back again. So I just want to check. It's also very difficult because the buffalo have completely mangled the road. They've stood all over the place, and when they stand everywhere, being heavy-footed big animals, if there's more than one or two of them, then they end up squashing that whole road surface, and it becomes really quite tough to actually see where anything's gone. I'm sure it's the same buffalo I had a few days ago here. There was 5 of them in total, so I'm sure it's those same males that have walked all over there. And it's interesting, I wonder if the lion that was seen at Arathusa is the same male that came along from Gowrie Main, because it came out of Arathusa and came along Gowrie Main and walked straight in an easterly direction, and then that's his tracks that I showed you now around the junction there. But he's definitely not come up towards Treehouse Dam. There's absolutely no sign of lions walking here. There's a single hyena that's been walking, but no sign of lions. Dave, I think he might have carried on east. But that's fine. We'll loop around and towards here, just see and make 100% sure. So the best way when tracking is to try and close off areas. So if you pick up a track and it comes along a road and then it cuts off and you can't see where it's gone and it looks like it goes into a certain section, just drive around to the other side, so the next road that runs parallel with you or opposite you, and you can then see if he comes out anywhere there. If not, then you come back to the last place that you had a track, and from there you know, okay, it must be somewhere in this area, and you then walk through and you either find the animal lying up in the grass, or if you're unlucky, he's walking while you're walking and you get to the other side and it's on top of your vehicle tracks. But then you at least have a way to judge that those tracks are very, very fresh and tracks that are worth carrying on following, because you're not too far behind him. Or her, should I say. Right, I just want to quickly check Treehouse Pan here and see if there's anything at Treehouse Pan. It can often provide some good sightings. Might be a little bit cool for any of the animals to be coming down for water, but let's have a look quickly and just see. Maybe we'll get lucky. This is one of the favorite places of Karula and the cubs, and there's also another reason why I'm here, which I shall show you shortly. Just got to get to that area, and hopefully it hasn't been disturbed by any naughty elephants. You can see them, hear the monotonous larks are still calling on both sides of me. But alas, there's very little at Treehouse this morning. It looks all quite quiet. But what I do want to look at is my little butterfly chrysalises. So you see here, Dave, on this buffalo thorn very close to you, you're going to be able to get in there. Now there should be on that branch, let me try and show you the best ones because I want to try and see. You can see on this bottom branch there's a little thing hanging down, so that is our butterfly chrysalis. No, a little bit to the left there, up a little bit. Okay, there it is in the left hand side of the frame. There we go. Alright, so this is a little caterpillar that's gone into a chrysalis stage. So this is now, it's going through a metamorphosis from a caterpillar into a butterfly. And I did a bushwalk a few days ago, it must have been 2 days ago, and there was actually a lot more of them on here than what I see now, and I wonder if some of them haven't already hatched and flown off. But I wanted to come and check on the progress and see how they're doing. Now, that particular one was a chrysalis. There was another one that was a caterpillar that was busy starting to go into this pupa stage, and that is the one that is on the far left of that main stem. And it looks like it's also now completed that, and the whole chrysalis is formed over it. So there we go, just that branch there at the bottom. There, up a little bit. There we go. So there we go. So the one on the left was a caterpillar 2 days ago. Now you can see it's been encased and it's starting to develop the wings. You can see the tiny little wings around its head area, and the one on the right, the wings are much larger, and that one was already formed when we came the other day. So that's really cool. I think what I want to do is try and come here at some stage and set up a time lapse and see if I can't get these butterflies and hatching out of their chrysalis and see the formation as it goes, and then them coming out and seeing exactly which butterfly it is. That might be quite a cool idea. Right, we've been looking at small things, and I was saying we'd come to a dam to look for any signs of animals coming to drink. Now I believe James Hendry has found the one animal that does love a drink both in the morning and in the evening. So let's go across and see what he's got.
There we have some elephants. They are quite a lot bigger than those caterpillars in their chrysalis stage, and indeed the elephant does not go through a metamorphosis. They will never be in a chrysalis. Now I can see about 3 elephants in there. It's quite thick. I'm just going to see where they're going to move before I decide if we should go off-road to see them or not. We seem to be in some form of concentration of monotonous larks as well. They're giving it full voice around here. Alright, let's try and let's just sneak slowly into the block. They're very peaceful, these elephants. And it looks to me like young bulls. Let's just ease along here. Of course, driving off-road here is, well, it's not very easy because there's quite a lot of bush and a lot of grass hiding that bush. Keep going through here. Is that a big hole there, Craig? Not really. Looks like there might be one. Oh well, we'll find out sooner or later. Oh, not where we're driving. Good. That's a relief. Oh dear. There is, however, a very large piece of stick. Let's see if we can get over it. Oh, there we go. One wheel over. Another wheel over. Oh, the elephants are being very patient about this. They're not irritated in the slightest. Okay. That's too much work for this time of the morning. Yeah, it's 2 bulls, I think. There was another one off to the left, somewhere. I suspect, there he is. I suspect it would have been more prudent to just go onto another road and get them coming out the other side. But I've tried that before quite often, and well, oft times it results in us losing them completely. There's a nice clearing through here that we'll get a nice view of them in. There we go. Now, of course, everything that we're hitting here, all these bushes and branches and stumps, have all been put here by these elephants over the course of the very dry season we just had. Good morning. Thank you for not running away or chasing us. It's very kind. And always, when you drive off-road like that, you crush bushes and things, and it results in the most delicious smells. There is a stand of hemizigia here that I have yet to see the size of. I will show you shortly once we've enjoyed this elephant. Now we're going to stay with these elephants. Let's head across to Tristan, who's got something very rare and therefore very important.
Well, important, yes. Very rare, James. I'm not so sure. I suppose we don't see them that often, do we? But it's now gone into the bush, and I'm trying to see if I can find it without spooking it. Do you see it there, Dave? I think it's just behind this guarri bush. We should see it now. There we go. They're busy flying away, unfortunately. So those are our ground hornbills. Now, I know Taylor had a fantastic sighting of them the other day. And look at them go, oh, are you going to land right here for us? Excellent. It's a little bit against the light, which is not ideal, but let's see how we can do this. And they are amazing birds. They really are very, very large. You can see that one's busy cleaning its beak at the moment, and they are silhouetted against the sun, so it's quite difficult to get any sort of coloration, but it's a jet black bird with this bright red face and throat patch. They really are quite special, and their numbers unfortunately have really declined due to habitat loss. And in this sort of southern part of the Kruger Park, we've had a lot of issues because the ground hornbills nest in rather large trees. They're like things like jackalberries and scotias, and most of those trees occur on river areas. And we had those massive floods in 2000 and 2012, and both of those washed a lot of massive trees away that were nesting sites for hornbills. So they have not as many nesting sites as they used to, which has led to a decrease in population within this particular area, which is not ideal. The other side of it is that across South Africa is that because they are insect eaters and they collect insects as they go, they're often a victim of poisoning of crops. So they eat poisoned insects, and that ends up killing them. They also have lost a lot of their habitat and treed areas to nest in, so their numbers have really declined quite excessively. Now, it looks like he might call. You can see the throat patch is inflated. You can hear he's just making a little contact call. It's difficult to hear him over the monotonous larks. Can you hear that very low grunt sound? Like I say, the monotonous larks and the rattling testicular are ruining it slightly, but so that is because the other one flew away, and I'm sure it's trying to contact the other one just to make sure it's still somewhere close by that it can then reunite and join. Hopefully he's going to warm up his voice, or her, and we're going to hear the whole call. Isn't that amazing, that sound? It sounds almost hollow. Ah, he's now flown off. I was hoping we were going to get the whole call, like I say, but unfortunately, they're gone. Well, still amazing to see. Like James said, we don't see them every day, and particularly here in Djuma, this is not a place that I would have thought we would have found them. They typically like more open, planed areas, so quarantine we see them a lot, but in this area I wouldn't have been expected to have found them, so that was a nice surprise. Now that we've stolen the limelight away from James and his beautiful Ellie Bull, I think he only deserves to get it back, so let's go back to James and see how his Ellie Bull is doing.
I must say, I think that a hornbill, ground hornbill specifically, of course, not the red-billed variety or yellow or grey, is worthy of the limelight. Here is the hemizigia plant. I'm about to move into the light again for the elephant, but that's what I was talking about. Whoops. And it's lovely because it smells like coconut when you're close up to it, and when you're not close up to it, it just sort of gives the air a sort of slight sort of coconut chocolatey smell to it. And this is a very small piece of one. Isn't that nice, Craig? Yes, quite nice, yeah. I mean, for you, that's an ecstatic response. Good. Let's go and find the elephant. Rebecca apparently likes them, so we'll take it back for her. Otherwise, we'll be in trouble. And no one wants to be in trouble with Rebecca. Frightening woman. Big holes. Can't believe how these elephants are just not reacting to us at all. It's fantastic. There is hemizigia all over this place, Rebecca. You'll have to come back here with a bucket and spade. There we go. That's a lovely pick. Isaiah, your second question of the day, you want to know how rare elephants are in our part of Africa. Well, it depends on the time of year. Sometimes, some months of the year, especially sort of November, December, we hardly can find an elephant here. But in the Greater Kruger Park, which is what we're part of, there are probably about 15,000 elephants or so. So there are a lot of them. Well, comparatively, I suppose, to, for example, city areas or not unprotected areas. But, you know, their numbers are still in a dire state and they are plummeting, and suddenly there's been a vast increase in the poaching of elephants, not so much in this area, but in other parts of Africa. So they are in some distress, but in our area at the moment the population is safe and okay. This time of the year is very good for elephants because the grass is long and they like to come and eat the grass on the granite. The granite is the underlying rock of this area, and it produces these long swords of grass, which is very good for the elephants. There's the other one. Oh, no, never mind. He's walked behind another bush. All three of them have now kind of split apart. You can see another elephant bottom there. And so, although they are split, they'll be almost certainly in some kind of vocal communication that you and I are unable to hear, for our ears do not pick up the infrasonic or low frequency sound waves that make up an elephant's communications. So they'll be chatting to each other, saying, well, you know, you have a good night last night? Yes, well, you know, it was quite fun. Getting a bit cold these days. Michelle, you're wondering if the tears, I'm assuming, in the elephant's ears are from fighting. No, they're almost certainly from being caught on thorns while an elephant is moving too quickly or flapping its ears with too much enthusiasm in the vicinity of thorny hooked bushes. So, no, it's not from fighting, I don't think. I mean, it may have been a result of running from a fight or running into a fight. But no, another elephant wouldn't have done that. It's difficult to see how that would have been possible. Just keeping an eye on all the other two as well. One of them's gone off a long way to the left, and then one to the right here. And they're feeding so peacefully that I want to be extra careful about how we move through here. Don't want to make too much noise. Watch your head here, Batman. Here we go. There we go. Lovely. He's very distinctive from the fact that he's had a bit of a runny tummy, clearly, and that's made a bit of a dark patch on his back leg. I'm not going to say that too loudly because I don't want him to become embarrassed. He's got quite a mouthful there, doesn't he? You see how they eat half of it? They bite it off and then drop it. And that's because they're going for the leaves. So watch carefully. And what you'll see is he'll pick the thing, or maybe even the seeds. Which part of the grass is he putting into his mouth? It's the top, it's the seeds. So he's leaving. Watch that. So he's picking the stalks. Crunch, crunch. And then he'll drop the stalk. There we go, the stalks go. So he's eating the seeds. I mean, he's definitely getting quite a lot of stalk in there as well. But he's going for the top. That's fascinating. I've never noticed that before. That's not because it's new elephant behavior, it's because I'm just not very observant. See that? He's specifically turning the grass plant so that the seeds go into his mouth and the stalks don't. That's very cool. And Red, at the opposite end, of course, the runny tummy, is constipation. An affliction that, well, none of us likes to experience. And you say, do elephants ever experience constipation? Red, I don't know. I'm sure they do. I'm sure especially in times of nutritional distress, there must be some kind of bowel issue that might create constipation. I'm not sure if I've ever seen a constipated elephant before. I imagine they would be quite irritated, so I'm going to assume that this one is not constipated. But I don't know. I'm sure it's possible. Remember though, any disease that an animal gets out here, or any sort of physiological disorder, they almost universally get them far less frequently than we do as human beings, because they have not removed themselves from the environment into which they have evolved. So they don't have lifestyle diseases, they don't have diseases that come from eating bad things or from stress or well, whatever else causes our lifestyle diseases. And so things like constipation, yes, I'm sure they have it, but it would be very brief. Likewise, a runny tummy, it would be very brief. And you know, there are no vets out here that look after the animals, and they somehow get by and survive. Very few of them drop dead of disease. But if you look at a pet, for example, a pet animal, how often do you have to take your pet to the vet because they're not eating properly or something's got under their skin and they get sick? Probably once or twice a year, I imagine. And wild animals just don't get sick like that. And it's because pets get sick because, of course, they're not in the environment to which they evolved. They eat all sorts of fangled doggy diets, none of which they've been designed to actually eat. Irrelevance, yes, indeed, it will be eaten. Nothing will go to waste. You say, will anything eat the bits of the grass the elephant is discarding? Yes, termites will. Almost certainly termites will come along and clean up the dry grass stalks. And if they don't, well, there'll be certainly some rotting and the bacteria will take them. But we'll try and go through there. We'll follow the path that he walks, and I'll pick some of that stuff up, and then I'll just show you while we're sitting here. What he's doing is he's picking up grass. So you can't see that I'm out of the car. What he's doing with his trunk, Craig, you'll tell me if he starts running towards us, will you? He's picking up these panicum plants like this, and with his trunk he's picking it up and then flopping it into his mouth like that end up, and then biting off this part and dropping it and swallowing that. And that, of course, is very rich in lots and lots of different nutrients. It's what Steph refers to as the oats of the bush. They do taste a little bit like oats. And, well, there'll be odd insects and things as well, I suppose, but that's not what he's going for. So there's lots of rich carbohydrate and probably quite a lot of protein in the seeds that he's picking up there. Let me get back into the car quietly. There we go. He's turned to face us now. Well, not to face us, he's still eating very nicely. Now we will be joined by a school in 4 minutes, the Hong Kong school. I think it is the Christian Alliance International School, is that correct? They'll be coming to join us in the next little while. So just be aware of that. This is a wonderful sighting. Oh, he's a lovely fellow, and he's nicely framed by that tree, I think. I've been really struggling of late to take original elephant photographs. But the tree makes quite a nice frame, don't you think, Craig? It's pretty cool, says Craig. He's very suspicious of my photographic skills. I don't blame him. Fairly suspicious of them myself. He's coming a little bit closer now, which is nice. Very relaxed. Destiny, you say you've read that elephants can laugh. Have I ever seen this? Well, let me try. Let me tell it a joke and let's see if it'll laugh. A horse walked into the bar and the barman said, "Why the long face?" Yes, they can laugh. You see, he found that very amusing indeed. You see that, Craig? Did you hear him laughing? Destiny, I don't know where you read that. I think that's fascinating. I don't know if they can laugh or not. I've never heard them laughing. I would suspect that it's unlikely, but I'd love to know where you read that, because of course it brings up all sorts of other discussions about how or what level of communication an animal like this is able to have with its conspecifics. So with other elephants, how much can it communicate, and what is the importance of the communication, and is there an element of it that is purely for entertainment? We of course laugh. Laughing is one of the healthiest things any human being can do. It makes us feel good, it makes us feel healthy, it makes us feel happy, which in turn is very good for our health. And so it wouldn't be surprising to find that other animals had evolved some form of ability to laugh. Possibly not a ridiculous joke like I've just told it, but you know what I mean. Good, we're going to stay with this elephant. We're going to try and get around him into the light. While we do that, Tristan has got something that likes to eat things that you and I wouldn't touch.
Well, we do have something that likes to eat meat. But first, we need to welcome the schools that have joined us this morning. So Christian Alliance International, a very warm welcome from a sunny South Africa this morning. Sorry, I'm being blinded a little bit by the light, and that's better. Thank you very much, Dave. So my name is Tristan, and on camera today I've got Dave, and we are out looking for all kinds of wild creatures early this morning, and we found a very interesting one that comes from the sky. So in the dead tree over there, we have a beautiful big white-backed vulture. Now, kids, if you are interested in these things and you want to ask questions, you're more than welcome to ask as many as you like, and you can just ask your teacher to send them through to us, and we'll try and answer as best we can for you. So I was saying that this is a white-backed vulture, and these white-backed vultures, the most common vulture that we see in this area, they tend to be quite prolific, and so often you'll find in the early morning, like it is now, where it's still quite cold and there's a little bit of dew on the grass, that the vultures are still sitting on these dead trees. And the reason why is because their wings get a little bit of dew on them, they get a bit damp, and so they need to sit in these open trees just to dry out before they start to fly. Also, they're waiting for thermals to start coming. So when the sun goes up, it starts to heat the land, and the land then gives off heat. And as the heat is going up, it tends to move in a circular fashion up into the sky. And so these vultures, because they're so heavy, and if they had to flap their wings all the time like other birds, they're going to use so much energy that they're not going to be able to stay up there. So they wait until those rings of hot air are rising off the land, and then they come and they get onto those, and then they'll start soaring in a circular motion, and they start going up into the sky to look for food. And they'll be looking for any dead animals that they can then go and scavenge off.